Hey everybody, welcome to another edition of PoCommunity. I'm Mike Garboyd and I'm sitting here with Evan Moore from IOSECURE.
Hey Mike, how you doing today?
Good man, how about you?
Hey, I'm doing pretty good.
Thanks for joining us. First question I always like to ask is, what do you do?
Yeah, well, I think the first thing to say is who am I?
Yeah,
My name's Evan. I'm a Poco born and raised person. So from birth to now, born and raised in Poco. So when I saw the Poco Community podcast, I said, hey, this is something I got to be a part of.
that's awesome. So like he's born and raised, so that makes you what school? What high school?
Oh, I was a Terry Foxer. I was
Foxer.
a North Sider.
Nice, nice. Yeah, I'm not from Poco. I'm Coquitlam, but I spent a lot of time down here. Always down at like either Coquitlam Center, and then coming into Poco. I had a lot of friends in Poco, but yeah, it's always nice to see people sticking around where they grew up, right?
Yeah, my wife and I, we just didn't find a reason to leave, right? We're both competitive cyclists, so the cycling community around here is great, and your access to everything is second to none.
Exactly. Yeah. So I agree. It's the scenery around here is amazing too. It's just uh, we are spoiled where we grow up. I think anywhere in the Lower Mainland really is just. I think as a person who grew up in BC, you definitely take it for granted until you start traveling elsewhere in the world, and then you realize once you get home that it's pretty damn beautiful, right?
Yeah, yeah. Well, one of the things I did in the past was I circumnavigated the continent by bicycle.
Oh wow.
So it was one of those things where I said to a couple people at first, "Oh, I'm just gonna ride across Canada." And then that didn't seem like enough. And then I said to a couple more people, "Oh, well, I'm just gonna go a little further." And then I set a date to it, and all of a sudden it's like, oh no, I gotta do this thing. So I totally agree with you because when I cycled across Canada, I was like, man, this is a beautiful place. And then you go down to the panhandle of Florida, and you're like, oh, what is going on down here?
Yeah, no, it's crazy. Just different parts of the world. I just when you fly into YVR or whatever, it's insane how beautiful it is. Like, yeah, I just think the western coast of it, North America really is just is beautiful. Pacific Ocean anywhere on there is gorgeous.
Yeah.
But yeah, IO Secure. What is IO Secure?
Yeah, so we're an IT consultancy based out of Vancouver here, and we focus on all things technical, primarily with the stuff that your IT runs on. So where does this voice recording go? How does that data flow in your network? How is it secured, and how are you working it?
Yeah, that's definitely something I'm very foreign to. Like I know it plugs in and it works, and so everything that's behind it is definitely just scrambled in my brain. So,
Yeah.
how did you get into like that kind of work?
Well, I've always been a lover of all things technical. Being a cyclist, like you have to be a technical lover in order to be competitive at all, right? So it was just kind of a natural progression of asking myself, what do I like doing, and then finding a home with IT, specifically where I focus is in industrial and small businesses.
No, that's pretty cool. Like, yeah, like when you were a kid, were you really into techie stuff as like a teenager and stuff?
It's funny because I didn't have that traditional IT background of having that computer and programming and doing that, but it really came later on in life, and it was primarily through my network of friends that pushed me to say, hey, this is something you should probably do. And IOSECURE's founder Tom, he's one of my mentors, been one of my mentors for a long time, and he encouraged me to take the plunge because he founded the business in 1994 and said, "Hey, this is something you should do."
Yeah, yeah. I mean, the industry is just gonna get bigger and bigger and bigger. I mean, we're just moving into a more technically sound world where if you're not getting with the times,
Yeah.
you're gonna get left behind, right?
Do you remember 1994?
I do. I would have been 7 years old, but I do because I remember the Canucks going to the Stanley Cup and all that stuff, and I just can't believe the difference. And like we're like the last generation that saw that like pre-internet, and then we got a lot of post-internet too. Like we when did it become like a household thing? 97.
Yeah, the dot-com boom.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So like I remember being at family dinners or like just my parents having parties at their place or whatever, and people trying to figure out like some of the questions that you would just ask Google now, right? Like
Yeah.
it's just like, oh, remember that movie? Who was that woman in that movie? And you hear people like trying to figure it out for 3 hours until finally somebody has that like light in their brain go off. And it's crazy how much has changed since then, where literally everything relies on internet. Like
Yeah.
if it crashes, everything crashes.
Yeah. Well, I think back to 1994, and it's like, what happened then? That was, like you say, the Canucks. It was also the O.J. Simpson white Bronco chase.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, okay, he was in that Bronco. What's a car today like? Okay, we've got Tesla on the other end of the spectrum. And when I look at it, it's like, well, our company actually had a similar path, right? Like 1994 to the early 2000s, it was really focused on that traditional networking where you'd plug a console cable in and figure out how to route information around a business. And then mid 2000s we really took a pivot and focused really heavily on security, like how do you secure that information in a corporate environment. And now it's all about automation and figuring out how to improve a business's processes. So just like you saw cars over the time change, we've also pivoted the business to follow that sort of trend.
Yeah, it's happened fast. If you look at like how much has evolved since that time, like it doesn't seem like by the time you can learn a new technology or something, there's something new that you have to learn. It's just insane. So like the technological boom since the 90s, how we rely on like literally there's grandmothers in their 80s that have computers now because they can't do anything old school,
Yeah.
right? It's moving that way to a point where now kids like aren't writing things down. It's all moving towards basically you know what I'm trying to say. I'm terrible. I told you I'm not a techie guy. I plug and go. I am very arts based, but it's always just kind of worked for me. And you got if you it's niche, whatever you kind of know, you know, but all the background work behind every little bit of technology that is used, whether it be like we're doing film here, we're doing audio, we're doing all the actual science behind that,
Yeah.
I will never understand. So that's something that like people in the tech industry and IT and all it blows my mind because I could never I don't have. I think it might be a little OCD or not OCD,
Yeah.
but ADHD. Just like don't have the patience for it. It's really difficult to me. So when guys like you, I have tons of respect for because it's keeping this world going. Like
Yeah.
really.
Well, I mean, you bring up a good point, right? There is definitely a gap. There's a digital divide between people who have ideas and are running businesses and people who are there to help facilitate getting those ideas accomplished. And that's the gap that we are here to fill, is to have someone come to us and say, "We need to do this," and then we figure it out.
Yeah, and I think we have a co-working space here, and I think where this can really flourish with people with like let's say app ideas, but literally have no background in creating apps, is building these communities where people can use their knowledge from different areas and blend them together without doing it. It's like going a little bit old school with new school because the new school way is all online. But in reality, when you're contacting people through email and stuff, it's not that personable
Yeah.
feeling, and it's not that like there's certain projects that people just are gonna connect on way more than you would expect it when you have to find it yourself online. We're really hoping to bring those business minded people together with IT people, to bring them together with arts people, because in business now it's all together in one when it comes to digital marketing. Like they all can work together, and personal relationships, I think now since COVID, are going to be flourishing. Once COVID's done, it's going to be flourishing more than ever. People want that sense of almost like family aspect around the projects they're working on, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, you hit the nail on the head, and that's why specifically the areas of focus for myself are in small business. And small business to me is anywhere from a solopreneur up to about 150 seats for small medium business for me, because it's fun at that stage. You've got people who are excited about their business. You've got lean teams that really need to be creative with how they implement something and need to be cost conscious. And my Irish roots are in my red beard here, so that's something that always resonates with me, and figuring out how can we get this accomplished and advance the business, right?
Yeah, and I mean, obviously, you love working with small business, like you said, and small business in the last year and a half has been hit greatly, and it's quite difficult. And nobody that's not involved in it really understands like the severity of what COVID has done to small businesses and just where they spend their money, because they have to down their costs basically. They have to bring them down so they're there's so many things you should be spending money on, but you kind of have to limit in each area. That if you're working with small businesses, have you seen it affect who you're working with quite significantly?
Yeah, I think the last 15 months have been really interesting because at the start there was a huge rush to address all of these challenges, and it was almost like a gold rush in the sense that everyone hopped in, but there wasn't a lot of time or effort spent validating, hey, is this the right thing for the business? So now that there is a roadmap for what looks to be the new normal, and now that things are opening up, it's almost like a second wave of people looking at what they did a year ago and saying, was that the right decision for the business? And specifically, um, I think the challenges that we're hearing a lot recently are revisiting work from home solutions, because maybe the collaboration tool or security solution they're not feeling comfortable with as a long term solution. New office networks, because people are sizing down, right? It's in these hybrid workplaces, you don't need that huge footprint. So how can we be smarter with a smaller space? And then workplace monitoring, right? Making sure that when people do eventually return to that space, how are you going to assure that your employee feels comfortable in it and that it's safe and secure? So I think those are kind of the main buckets that things are falling into for the small business. And then there's a few additional buckets that are common topics for industrial customers that have tough, challenging spaces that aren't in a carpeted space like this.
Yeah, those are way more difficult. A lot of the industrial places they've stayed open and because they are essential. So people like that, those industries, a lot of them aren't working from home. The ones that are working from home are a lot of office people. And I've said it on many of the podcasts. It's going to be super interesting once COVID isn't an excuse while people are still working from home for numbers being subpar or like below average because it takes a special kind of person to actually be successful working from home because it's
Hmm.
a self-driven, not unless you have a micromanaging boss who is like monitoring your time on the computer or something. If you're given like the free time to do it, and as long as you get your work done, it takes a special kind of person to be doing it either like the full day, or even like the people that are really hard working. It's hard to separate work and home life that you're working almost too much. So it's a weird kind of blend. I know for a fact I have friends that are working from home. Some of them are flourishing. Some of them are like waking up later,
Yeah.
working in their pajamas. So really, I'm gonna be interested to see where it goes. Once the restrictions are lifted, the bosses have to decide. Okay, do we go in either back to an office? Do we lease somewhere else? Do we use a co-working space, or do we keep our staff working from home? Because yeah, I once the numbers are supposed to go back to normal, if it's like a sales team or something, and COVID's over, expect those numbers to go up again, and they're still like this because people are working from home and not getting that stuff done. I think you're gonna see basically a bunch of clustered bosses like not knowing what to do, and that's totally understandable
Yeah.
because this hit everybody, depending on the industry, hit them in certain almost the same way, but in different ways. Some industries flourished, obviously, but what is the right decision?
Yeah, and that's a good thought for sure. And I think what's really interesting is with a lot of the small business owners that we talk to, there's almost two hats they have to wear when we're talking to them about IT security. So securing their information, it's okay, what's the least amount of trust that you can give everyone, and how do you prove that trust on an ongoing basis so that your information that you've spent years building is secure? But then there's the flip side of that to say, okay, once you trust someone and you trust an employee, what tools do you have to elevate that trust and not micromanage them? And that's really the difference between um, collaboration tools that just allow video conferencing to tools that give you insights into how your employees are working, words, phrases they're using, and coachable moments, right? There, I think that's the next phase is how do we take the tools that we know we need and tweak them to actually build trust and build training with the team as things move forward.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously, the younger generation is gonna have to like it's gonna be normal. Like before, when you could score that job from home or something, like you've had those few friends that did, and you never heard about it really until you had a few scattered friends that did. Now it's, I think, going to be a majority of anybody that knows in like office industries is um, there's going to be a lot of cost cutting by not having to lease out giant spaces for sales teams. Like you've seen some of the giant sales offices with like hundreds of salespeople sitting in downtown Vancouver. Like imagine the rent on those buildings. We're in Poco, significantly cheaper rent than downtown Vancouver, but when those bosses are like, okay, literally, like dude, basically thousands of dollars saved by sending our people home. They might be happier. It's somewhere that nobody's ever really ventured off into before, where it's like full sales teams from home. There's always going to be places people have their like almost on the road sales teams and stuff, but it's a very interesting time
Yeah.
because it's finally kind of going into a positive light when it comes to the I'm not gonna say the end of COVID because I don't think we're nearly near the end, but just more of living with it in a normal way. And it's see where how it affected um, small businesses because we're still going to see small businesses affected by this, especially after being given loans and all the stuff that now they have to pay back.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's a good point, right? There was some good that came from COVID was it forced small businesses or businesses in general to keep lean, protect their stuff and protect their teams that were there. So I think that those messages are going to continue to move forward, right? Like how can we help and these are questions I'm asking myself to make sure I'm addressing with the customer is how can I help keep their team lean, their IT team or operations, whoever it is? How can I keep them protected? Whether that's data or in person or anything, everything I'm looking at is how can I keep them protected, and then how can I speed up operations for this company? Because at the end of the day, an IT project's dead in the water if you don't have buy-in, and the only way to get buy-in is to prove a use case, right? How can we either promote safety, reduce downtime, or increase revenue? So if we can't tie it to one of those three things,
Yeah,
then there's no point having a conversation, right?
yeah, 100%. I know you. This is totally going into another direction. What we were talking about earlier, cycling.
Yeah.
At most times I've seen you come in here, you bring your bike.
Yep.
Has that been a passion for like a long time?
Oh my gosh, yeah. So um the long and the short of it is there's a bike store just down the street from here. It was formerly called Westwood Cycle, Caps Westwood Cycle. It's now Trek Bicycle. And I was 13 years old. I had my first kitchen job. I worked that for 2 years, and at 15, I had a nest egg. And at that point, a nest egg of a few $1,000, you're like, oh my gosh, what am I gonna do? I'm rich. I'm insert rich person here. So my mom said you should go learn how to maintain your bike. So I walked into Caps at the time and with my normal energy and signed up for a course, did it, learned how to tune up my bike and left. And I was in the parking lot that day, and the owner, Glenn Hobbs, came up to the car door, knocked on it, and said, "You're gonna work here." So at that point, it was better than washing dishes. So I said, "Yep, I sure am." So I worked in the bike industry from 15 through till just a couple of years ago,
Oh wow.
and it was really exciting. Glenn Hobbs and Kelly Hobbs, they were great mentors to me and really taught me the ins and outs of the business and gave a lot of trust to me to help run that business and grow it. And through that, that's actually how I met Tom and segued into this part of my life, because Tom's also a very passionate cyclist as well. So it's funny how the small business community in the Tri Cities is so powerful, right? Like you mentioned how I come in here on my bike, and that's all through interactions with other Fountainhead businesses, and the network of great people is even smaller, and you guys have a great business and great community here.
Thank you. We were trying, man. It's that's what we want. We want people here basically collaborating, communicating with one another. Obviously, COVID put a damper on that a little bit, but starting to get a lot better and just seeing like relationships build and more meetings and people seeing the place for the first time and just seeing how cool co-working can be. I think a lot of co-working spaces have kind of ventured off into more of the corporate lifestyle like that people were trying to get away from by going to co-working spaces, and that's very like boxy offices and just like separation. And yeah, we're not supposed to be really together, that kind of that right now, like they've been trying to keep people away from each other, which is understandable. But now I think after this, I think we're gonna see just people wanting to be around people, and that's what we're really hoping for, because the relationships that are built through like you're talking trust just with bosses trusting their staff with,
Yeah,
and I think just trust through like almost like handshake business deals, like the old school way of doing things, but in the new technologies that and the new businesses that people are running, but doing it in a more just like I help you out, you help me out, just relationship. It's
yeah,
awesome to see, because I think the past generations have been very just monetization, like whatever. Well, what I won't do anything unless it makes me money,
yeah,
and I think human relationships, if you have good ones, will end up making you way more money in the long run working like that than just instantly about the money, like right away about just money, money, money.
yeah,
And I think people are kind of understanding that through COVID, how basic life can be done, and you don't need the lavish lifestyles that we like people thought they needed before.
yeah,
So yeah, I just think it's such an interesting time. It is such a it should be a booming time right now. It's going to be interesting because of how much debt the world's going to be in,
yeah,
but it's trying to look at everything in a positive light.
yeah.
It's finally a little bit more of a green light go time. I think, yeah, people need to be around people.
Yeah. Well, and I think you hit on a good point there. With the small business and industrial customers that we're talking to that are switched on, when we're helping them improve automation, machine learning, whatever keyword you want in here to improve their business process, the way they're looking at it is not to say, okay, we're going to automate this to kick out one or two employees or whatever it is. They're looking at it to say, we've got this great person that we have on our team. We're going to free them up to do actually what they want to do. And I'll bring it back to the when I worked in washing dishes, right? One of my tasks there was every hour I would have to go check the thermostat in the freezer, write it down so that WorkSafe knew that our food was safe, right? So those are the type of tasks that it's like automation frees that up,
Yeah,
and connecting things frees that up. And if you embrace that, you can have your good people do even better work for you because they're free to do what they like.
quality over quantity in every aspect,
Yeah,
where they're doing the jobs that they like or the important jobs to a more thorough degree than having to fit in kind of useless kind of work that could be done, like you said, automated, and it completely wipes out almost like pointless work. And yeah, I think that's the way the future is going. I think, but you know what, there is it's a great industry for you to be in, and nobody likes to replace people's jobs, but the way inflation's happening and stuff, small businesses. I know I'm not against the minimum wage being hiked up in BC, because I mean, how expensive is it here? It's stupidly expensive. So you need people to be able to. It's not a livable wage, a minimum wage at all in BC. But what do small businesses do that when now it's 15, 20 an hour? Like, I know McDonald's in a small business, but when meals at McDonald's all of a sudden are $15, when is automation going to fully replace these jobs that kids used to have? Like, that's, I remember, like you were joking about working at Caps, or no, you're working at the dishwashing, and you had a couple of $1,000 or whatever in the
Yeah.
account, and that seemed like, oh my god. Same thing happened to me working at McDonald's, making $6.50 an hour. Somehow I still have more money than I do now. Like, it was just like, it's because what do you have to spend on, right? And it's now, it's so bloody expensive for
Yeah.
everyone that it's going to be super interesting how many businesses are kind of not out of being like, I need to cut costs. It's like they need to cut costs by going to automation. They need to, because paying a McDonald's employee 15, 20 an hour is kind of like, it doesn't seem feasible for what you
Yeah.
want to sell your food at, right?
Yeah, and I think with that, it's one of the challenges is as an IT firm, we get called in when someone already has a vision of what they want the end product to be, and you have to walk that expectation back a little bit and really lay out a plan to say like, okay, you have your vision of what running looks like, but we have to crawl and walk first. So, I mean, for us at least, it usually comes in to say we have to start with an assessment. We have to get to know your environment, what's working, what's the sentiment behind it, propose what changes need to happen, start with a kind of proof of concept to say, okay, let's figure out what solutions need to be in place and get them actually running, and then let's get to your run. It's not just a case of, okay, punch in the password and everything's running. It's when you're dealing in a society where we are right now, where you can log in with a password and subscribe to any service, IT environments with industrial customers and small businesses, it becomes more challenging when your business grows to scale that out, because oftentimes things just run amok, and it's nice to have someone there that you can say, hey, we need to get here, here's where we're at, and then look at it and say, let's do an assessment, let's figure out a plan, and let's get you running type of thing.
Yeah, that's I find that any every industry is under evaluated for how much time it takes. I think you were saying like a lot of people come up with this plan, and they're already thinking here, but you have to come up with everything here, and that's where like you'd come in. But I find that I work in like video editing, and I've been producing things for people, and everybody sees the finished product and thinks, depending on like how long the video is, that must be how long it took you to get it done. Like, if it's a half an hour video,
Yeah.
no, that could take you, depending on how many cuts, everything, it takes forever. And I think that's why I really like, I'll keep pushing pumping our tires here with the co-working. Is just, that's where I think a lot of people actually see different industries and see how much work goes into it. A lot of people think that a website developer can just make that website like that for anybody, because that's what they do, and they don't see the time.
Yeah.
And I think that's where you're getting, it's that whole generational change. It's going to be really nice, I think, for like people working with business owners in 20 years that have more of a technological brain, because business owners that have been doing it for 30, 40 years, still running these businesses and having to adapt this huge change of everything. Like, the whole world, like I said, if the internet crashes, what happens? We're literally like, your security systems are down, your people's yeah, everything's down. Pretty much everything is connected through internet now, and it's never it not going to change anytime soon, but it changed really fast to that, right?
Hmm. Yeah, and I think with small business, sometimes when you think about that, it's almost a thought process goes in the head to say, "Oh, this isn't applicable to me now. I'm just working at home, or I'm working from a co-working space from my laptop." But there's always tips and tricks on how to improve, right? And that's really where my motivation is, because like we looping it back to the conversation we were just having, about the network of people in the Tri-Cities here. That's really the goal here, is if we can put out some goodwill tips and tricks, we know that that business will grow, and we know that our business will grow, because of that. So I think that's one of the key takeaways is if you are not a tech savvy person and you're concerned about, hey, I don't really know what's going on here. I don't know where my data is going. I don't know if I have backups in place. I haven't tested my backups. Like, there's 20 questions that you can run through your head, and if any one of those is a no, then there's a challenge there that you should probably reach out, and we could probably figure out a way to help you out with.
Yeah, local support is great. The Tri Cities, Poco, but just like I consider the Tri Cities one. There's something about like Port Moody, Coquitlam, Port Coquitlam. They just have like a connection to each other, even though they're different cities. They're very connected. I guess it's because a lot of people work with like kind of travel and work within it. A lot of entrepreneurs in the area. Like I don't know if it's something in Poco. Like it's just there's a lot of people that do their own thing in Poco, which
Yeah.
is awesome. And they're coming out like full force. The amount of people we have in here that are like born, raised Poco, um, from from every industry. The amount of artists and like musicians and stuff coming out of Poco that are so underappreciated and just underrated, need to be discovered. It's insane,
Hmm.
and it's been amazing being here every day and have these people walk through and see like these relationships naturally build. They never met people meeting each other for the first time here, and just we find out are working on projects outside of here, and it's but everybody wants to help each other out.
Hmm.
It's really even like co-working spaces. There's a couple more in the Tri-Cities, and it's not like I was talking businesses in back in the day were a little bit different minded. It's a little bit more cutthroat. If you had if you were a store that was selling the same thing as another store in the same city, you did not like each other. Now I think a lot of people are just like there's plenty of room for everybody to succeed, and
Hmm.
if we kind of support one another and people don't see that like you basically support your competition, like people see that and don't see it as a family aspect. I like this really what we're pushing. We want it to be very homely, is that the word, homely, to people, where it's not just work, because people that come to co-working spaces are trying to get away from that work work mentality. It's more like get your work done, but in a place where it can be fun, relax when you want to, but also a place to be serious and get your work done.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's just amazing, man. I talk to people a few times a week in here, and it's amazing how many people kind of took their own initiative in Port Coquitlam, and decided they wanted to do what they wanted to do, and especially the people that have got laid off during COVID that had side hustles or something, and they're like, I'm been laid off. This is my job now. I'm
Yeah.
going to take this side hustle and turn it into a business. It is such a leap of faith to start a business during a pandemic, but if you can make it work right now and then it's done, like you got something.
Yeah.
If you can make something work, then it's amazing how many people have started businesses, man. A good, I'd say at least 10 of the podcasts are people that have started businesses in the last year. And it's beautiful. It's really good to see. Because yeah, I come from a music background, and when I grew up in Coquitlam, there was nothing around here. Uh, for a community, you have to, or like recording studios, you'd have to go downtown
Yeah.
Vancouver. Everything was downtown Vancouver. I know there was a few out here, but they weren't what you needed. Um, and it's finally nice to see more and more people working in Poco and working in Coquitlam and working and not having to venture off downtown Vancouver.
Yeah.
It's developing here.
Yeah, I think uh, what you said there about the Fountainhead network here is 100% true, and the reason that I love coming here is everyone's so open to talking, and everyone's so open to sharing referrals if they think it's going to be mutually beneficial. Two specific people that come to mind is Ed from Computer Age and David from Nespresso, because when I looked at those businesses, they just reached out and said, "Hey, we think you could help us here," and we had a great conversation. And the business that we've drummed off of that has, and conversations we've drummed off of that, has been mutually beneficial for both parties, and it's really been a great way to go. And when you're talking about the amount of businesses that have started in the last year, I mean, although I work for IOSECURE. I am a contractor for them. So I actually started my own business, and COVID definitely prompted me to do that. And Tom encouraged me to jump off the lily pad to do it. And you guys have been a great support along the way to establish those first connections and get the momentum going in the right direction.
Yeah, I'm happy to hear that, man. I love the relationships, the branches of relationships too. There's certain people we have here that they love communicating with people and building those relationships, and it's like I said, there's like a handful of them that they bring in one person and that person meets someone else and then they start working together, and it's just just a branch upon branch upon branch of just growing their network. And I am so excited to see what the next like year is going to be like, where we can have events, social gatherings,
Hmm.
where get that foot traffic in here of people that never knew. Like we're doing what we can marketing wise, but it's very difficult to get big amounts of people in the space comfortably to see what we do here. Events, I think, in the next year are going to be so good to have schmoozers with just entrepreneur schmoozers, local like open mic nights and stuff. People, artistic people coming in here. Um, if I really am pushing to a lot of older generation businessmen that we've had come and get memberships here. It's just their social media marketing, how important that is now, and how the artistic people we have here, you need to work with them. Like
Hmm.
it is so key now to have a visual aspect of your business and how to use video and how to use photography and stuff to promote yourself. And it always sounds so much easier than it is. Like I said, different industries. It's always like taking photos is easy to somebody who doesn't take photos, right?
Hmm.
So I really want to bring all communities in here just to know that they need to work together. They
Yeah.
need to. And yeah, it's insane, man. I the amount of events we have planned coming up that we know we want to do once it's like green lit. I want all of Poco to come. I want them all here. Like anybody, it doesn't matter what you do. We want to inspire people that have those ideas or side hustles that haven't taken the plunge yet. That's why we have our memberships that are 1, 2, 1, 3, 5. You don't have to do a full time gig.
Hmm.
If you want to take a day a week to kind of sprucing up what you have an idea for, just to do it for small monetization or just for fun, come here. It's a great place to kind of get an idea how to do it. But yeah, I don't know. Have you been You've been parts of co-working before, right? Like,
With you guys,
yeah,
you're the first kick at the can, and it's home.
yeah, that's awesome, man. I love hearing that. And I know after talking with you and when you come in here, you're gonna meet more and more people and enjoy having meetings with them and seeing where you can work together. Because yeah, David's great, Ed's great. Um, David is there's another branch where he's come in a few times, done the Nespresso thing, and he's brought in people that he knows that have become members, and it's just he's amazing. He does so much out of us like loving the community and helping out. And I know when we're doing an after COVID party, still date to be determined depending on when everything is good to go. But he's like brings his espresso, and he's been doing all these samplings and everything for everybody. He's a great guy. So yeah, man, I appreciate it. I appreciate you coming in. I want to know where we can find how to use your services. And
Yeah, I think that's a perfect segue. I mean, you'll see me at a lot of the Fountainhead events, so feel free to come say hi. My name's Evan again, and you can find me at the events. You can find me on LinkedIn at Evan at IOSECURE or IOSECURE Evan. Twitter, same thing, Evan IOSECURE. Or my email is easy as well, which is just evan at iosecure.com. So you pretty much type in Evan IOSECURE, you're going to find me somewhere and
okay.
just communicate that way.
Yeah, I'll look you up on Google and just like add all of your all different accounts into a graphic at the end of this. But yeah, I like talking to you, man. I'd love to get in on more conversation about like your love for cycling too, because I mean, I love people that have passions for any kinds of sports or where it's more than just that to them, where
Hmm.
it's more of like their everyday life. And I can tell like you seem even like I think you've come in here on days where it's pretty dreary outside, and you still seem like super happy that you were on your bike. And
Yep. Yeah, you can't have a bad day on your bike.
yeah,
Well, in my opinion.
yeah, some people can.
Some people would disagree with me
Yeah,
on that
but
one.
that's everybody's got their thing, man. Like that's I was a pro wrestler. That's my passion. So that's getting back into it, and that's the weirdest thing. But everybody has their thing, and
Yeah.
I love when people are their full self with it. Like they don't hide it. I am what like I definitely have Peter Pan syndrome where it's just like I don't you have to grow up, but you don't have to grow up. You
Yeah.
can love what you did as a kid and continue to love it and love it as much as you did when you were a kid. But just kind of adult along with it.
Did you ever go to the events in the Elks Hall in downtown Poco?
I wrestled on those shows.
No way!
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
That's
yeah,
awesome.
yeah, yeah.
I remember walking past it once, and I walked in, and I was like, "This is awesome, hilarious, all things all in one," and it was done so well. So I couldn't remember the faces, so it was probably
Yeah,
you.
I was on a lot of the Poco shows because they were smaller shows, and they always, yeah, for some reason they always booked me on them. Sucked because I was a high flyer, so I did a lot of flips and stuff. But the ceiling was so low, so I couldn't
Yeah,
really do them. We did Hyde Creek too in Poco. That was like we did a 72-hour straight wrestling with hunger. It was called like for what's the share food bank. So we like raised food for like hunger
yeah,
children with hunger
yeah,
basically, and raised a ton. It was actually we are trying to get a Guinness Book of World Records, and we did technically do it, but we didn't have anybody from Guinness come to do it, see it, so it didn't
yeah,
get into the book.
yeah.
But yeah, it was 72 hours straight at Hyde Creek. Yeah, but those Elks Hall shows are funny. Like I actually I had my last match in that place,
Nice.
and I quit in 20 it would have been 2015, and now it's 2021 and I'm going back. So
Oh,
once it's
okay, so let's see how small the wrestling community is here, and we're gonna
yeah,
see if we can bring this full circle.
yeah,
Do you recognize the name Steve Smurfett?
yes,
So Steve and I worked at Eastside Mario's washing dishes when I was 13 years old, and we just stayed connected ever since. I only see him walking around on the streets around here every now and then, but I always say, hey, how you doing? Hey, Steve. So that's
yeah.
that's
I used to do
hilarious.
a lot of like I think just like random like security ring crew stuff for them, and I'm friends with them on Facebook and everything.
Yeah,
But yeah, I knew he was local. I never was close with him or anything, but yeah,
yeah.
I know who he is. Yeah,
Funny.
yeah,
The Poco community,
yeah,
hey?
yeah. I guess the wrestling community is very small. I mean, it's a weird niche. I mean, it's a brand of entertainment that only so many people understand. And what I like to tell people that don't understand it is it's live action stunt work. If you watch movies, they take takes of all these stunt moves and all these fight scenes. what wrestlers are they're doing that, but they only got one take, and that's where I think where you give the industry more respect than people give it, because they're like, oh, it's phony, it's fake. There's nothing fake about getting dropped on your head. I'm sorry, there's nothing fake about that. It's choreographed.
Hmm.
It's basically, that's why so many wrestlers get involved in stunt work afterwards, or while they're wrestling, because it's the exact same thing, essentially. But it's a crazy industry. I got involved in when I was like 15 years old, and did that for a while, and yeah, got sick of politics and everything. But it's definitely a funny industry to be part of.
Well, now you're gonna have a cheering crew when you get back into it. You can put the message out to the Fountainhead and say you gotta come support
Or
me.
boo me because I like being a bad guy. So
Oh, okay.
I'm a natural bad guy all the time. I'd say at least 80% of my career was bad guy. My first character wasn't like my major character, and then once I turned bad, it was like
There's no going
it's
back.
so much more fun, man. It's so much more fun doing that. It's fun when you can actually like, and crowds are different. The Poco shows tended to be more family friendly, so we kind of kept toned it down. Go to Surrey, it's a totally another story. You have families swearing at you with like 6-year-old kids like
Yeah,
screaming
yeah,
at
yeah.
you. So when I was a bad guy and I could have all of Surrey hate me, that's pretty fun.
Did you have an entrance song that was like your go-to?
Yeah, well, my first wrestling gimmick was I was a hip hop artist, so like I recorded my own theme, and then I later on it was a lot of stables, so like I was in groups of guys, so it was
Mm.
always like the top bad guy group it was a ECCW. I was part of it, so we all came out to the same music. I was the Jinja Ninja near the end of my career, and that was like I don't know if you are a big like Ninja Turtles guy, but Go Ninja Go by Vanilla Ice. I came out to like a dubstep version of it near the end of my career, which was it was crazy, and that was yeah full on like look like Mortal Kombat character ninja. Um,
Can you give us a sneak peek on what you're thinking the new character is going to be,
it's
or are you resurrecting?
I have been part of a group because wrestling's not happening right now due to COVID, to keep wrestlers kind of on their acting minds, like the promo work and like that kind of backstage like vignettes and all this stuff. There's a group out of Kelowna called Big West Wrestling who put on, it's called Tuesday Night Talk now, and it's just
Mm.
promo battles. So it's basically guys talking shit to each other back and forth. Whoever gets voted by the fans, all this wins, goes on. So it's going to the playoffs. I've been ranked number one or number two all season out of 16 people. And I've used our studio to my advantage that I can do a lot of special effects instead of a lot of the guys are just like filming themselves on their camera
Yeah,
phones and in like whatever scenery they're in. I can do that times a million with a green screen studio and do a bunch of crazy effects.
yeah.
Um, but to keep that's what I've been doing, and a ton of us have just been going hard with is this promo work, which is now because they throw themes into the weeks where
Mm.
it's just like they did like a 70s theme, so like you had to kind of be almost like a 70s character, like they do characters. It's kind of driven me to kind of see where I want to go with my character in the future. Like
Mm.
I took aspects from all these different themes they've given. I'm like, oh, I've been growing a COVID beard for like I'm like this year it was like last year I didn't grow it, but January 2021 I'm like, you know what? I'm not shaving until this thing's done. Like until COVID is like things are back to normal, this thing is growing. And then because of that, I started like, oh, I'm gonna use this as like marketing for wrestling.
Yeah, yeah,
So I have combs, and I like been like just resting combs in my beard and stuff, almost like an afro pick,
yeah.
but it's for my beard. So I think once I go back, already looked online because merchandising in wrestling's huge. You can get custom combs for like good price, and
Yeah,
just get like 100 of them, and then just sell them for $5 at the shows. And
yeah, yeah,
I think the comb thing is definitely where I'm going. That was from doing a '70s promo where I wanted to look like a '70s guy, like a soul, like I had like a most soulful voice, and it was just combing my beard the whole time.
yeah.
And now it's become a life of its own. So
Reminds me of the Family Guy episode where Peter Griffin's got all the birds and stuff in his beard.
it's so good, so good. Yeah, I characters, everything. I've had many. I was like I said, hip hop artist, a ninja. And now I sticking to my wrestling name's been Red Dinero, where it was Red Money, and then it became Red Dinero when I turned into a bag, and I'm just gonna go still with that.
Nice.
And, yeah, but kind of be my sarcastic asshole self, kind of times a million. That's what wrestling is. If the best wrestling characters are just themselves ramped up to like a level,
Yeah.
and that's like I'm not a prick, but like if you're on my bad side and it's playing a character, I definitely will ramp it up.
Yeah.
I can talk about this forever. You got me on a subject that I can talk about forever, but
We've hit your equivalent to cycling is wrestling, so we've got another podcast in the future here.
Yeah, yeah, it's definitely something that only people that love it understand.
Yeah.
It's I mean, it's women and men, but like for a lot of history, it was men in tights wrestling each other, which is in reality kind of hysterical, and it's like soap opera mixed with athletics, but there's something about it, man. It's a reason why it's such a huge industry internationally. And like they found out that the first pro wrestling match, I think, was like back in Roman times or something, where it was where when they started staging fights, where they started like, okay, we're gonna throw these guys in like the pit, and because the king wants this guy to win, we're gonna say that we're gonna execute this one guy, but actually pay him off to lose. And it's like weird things like that. That's how wrestling started. Circus, the same thing. It was just like freak shows versus regular people, and for like you bring in a bunch of regular people who lose, and then the one like hero, like the David versus Goliath story, all of a sudden the David would win, right? And it's wrestling. That's life. Life and wrestling tie together quite a bit, and people don't realize it. It's very, if you don't think that the fix has been on in different sporting events and stuff throughout the history of time because of money or whatever issues would happen with the other outcome, you're kidding yourself.
Yeah. One of the fun projects I've got going on for my house is I love Christmas, so I'm gonna do one of those Christmas light displays, and I'm programming a computer to do all the crazy light flicks to songs.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking to myself, oh man, if we need to get Mike a crazy light show intro synced to music,
Nice.
I'm your guy.
That sounds awesome. I've seen those light shows. They're crazy online. Some of those YouTube videos is people with like the Halloween or the Christmas light shows are just great. I'd love to straight up have like in the future, obviously, but like what are they called? When they bring, I'm like wholly having a brain fart. When they brought back like they bring back artists and put them on stage, and when they're dead.
Oh, like the hologram.
Yeah, hologram. Why would that's so, like if they started doing like straight up like Christmas Vacation or something, like scenes, and you can put it on like you have like Clark Griswold on your roof or something, like falling off, or it'd be insane. And I think it's going there, man. I think we're getting to it's a crazy time with technology. Yeah, I guess we'll finish it off.
I think that's a good point to wrap her up
talking
here.
Christmas in June. But yeah, thank you, Evan. It was great talking to you. If you want to ever be on a podcast again, got a couple other ones. You can talk more cycling, more wrestling, whatever you want to talk about. But yeah, you're in Poco, so you know where we're at.
Yep. I think for the next one, we should come in our wrestling garb. You've already got yours. I'll have to figure one out, and we could do it themed.
Find out a day that I come in. I film promos here once a week. Mine was yesterday, so I did a disco promo yesterday.
Nice,
because that was the theme. So yeah, that's it's pretty fun. I have an acting background too, so that was like mixing. Right now, I'm not in the greatest shape. I used to be in much better shape when I wrestled. Now I have to get my dad bod back into. Like, or get my dad bod out of here.
Red Dinaro bod.
You know what? It can work. I used to be so like guy was fast and did a bunch of crazy moves. Now I'm like, I'm old. I just want to like punch and kick and just like not fall. And you know what? The size might work. Nobody's throwing me around.
Yeah.
So yeah. Thanks, man.
All right, I
Venture out.
appreciate it.
Check him out. IOSECURE. I will put up a bunch of like his information just after this, so keep an eye out. But thank you for watching another episode of PoCommunity. I'm Mike Garboy. He is Evan Moore. Have a good one.